नमस्कार दोस्तों। क्या आपके साथ कभी ऐसा हुआ कि आपने कोई वीडियो देखी, कोई एडवर्टाइजमेंट देखी जिसमें बोला गया कि आप जो है अगर आज इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हो तो 2 महीने के अंदर अंदर आपके पैसे डबल हो जाएंगे? क्या आपने कोई ऐसे एडवर्टाइजमेंट देखा जिसमें ये बोला जाए कि आप अपना कलर जो है, स्किन कलर जो है, 1 हफ्ते के अंदर या 1 महीने के अंदर काले से गोरा कर लेंगे? आपने कोई ऐसी एडवर्टाइजमेंट देखी जिसमें ये क्लेम किया गया हो कि हमारे यूपीएससी कोचिंग सेंटर में पिछले 10 साल से लगातार हम 10 टॉपर्स हमेशा देते आ रहे हैं? तो इस तरह की एडवर्टाइजमेंट जहाँ पे आपको लगे ये फॉल्स है, मिसलीडिंग है, तो यहाँ पे एज ए कंज्यूमर राइट्स ऑफ ए ग्रुप, कंज्यूमर्स एज ए क्लास का राइट इफेक्ट हो रहा है। और दैट्स वेयर इट एम्पावर्स यू, जो कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट 2019 है, दैट एम्पावर्स यू टू फाइल ए CCPA कंप्लेंट। हम इस कंप्लेंट के प्रोसेस को जानेंगे, हम इस कंप्लेंट को फाइल करने के लिए कौन सी कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी के पास जा सकते हैं उसके बारे में समझेंगे। इस कंप्लेंट के अंदर जो कॉम्पिटेंट अथॉरिटी है उसके पास क्या पावर्स हैं टू स्टॉप सच फॉल्स एंड मिसलीडिंग एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स, उनके बारे में भी हम समझेंगे। एंड इफ़ यू आर ए बिजनेस पर्सन जो कि अफेक्टेड हुआ है इस तरह की कंप्लेंट्स के कारण, देन यू ऑल्सो हैव ए राइट टू be heard as well as right to file an appeal against the orders of a central consumer protection authority. So let us now get deeper into the understanding the scope and procedure regarding the CCPA complaint. तो CCPA है क्या? सेंट्रल कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन अथॉरिटी। अंडर कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट 2019 में ही इस बॉडी को एस्टैब्लिश किया गया। इसको हम सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी के नाम से भी जाना जाता है अंडर द कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट में। इसका प्राइमरी रोल क्या है? फर्स्ट रोल इज़ टू रेगुलेट मैटर्स रिलेटेड टू द वायलेशंस ऑफ कंज्यूमर राइट्स, अनफेयर ट्रेड प्रैक्टिसेस एंड false or misleading advertisements that are prejudicial to the public and consumer interest। जहाँ पे भी कंज्यूमर्स एज ए क्लास के राइट्स इफ़ेक्ट हो रहे हैं, जहाँ पे भी अनफेयर ट्रेड प्रैक्टिसेस आर बीइंग एस्टैब्लिश्ड टू एक्सप्लॉइट द कंज्यूमर्स इन लार्ज नंबर्स, जहाँ पे भी ये फॉल्स एंड मिसलीडिंग एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स इशू हो रही हैं, दैट्स वेयर जो सेंट्रल कंज्यूमर प्रोटेक्शन अथॉरिटी है दैट विल गेट एक्टिवेटेड। इसका प्राइमरी रोल यही है टू प्रमोट, to protect and enforce the rights of the consumer as a class. That is very important. So आप इंडिविजुअल कंप्लेंट्स को लेके CCPA के पास नहीं जा सकते, लेकिन अगर आपकी इंडिविजुअल कंप्लेंट इज सिमिलर टू द सिनेरियो जिसमें मल्टीपल कंज्यूमर्स आर ऑल्सो फेसिंग सिमिलर टाइप ऑफ कंप्लेंट, देन it is up to CCPA to consider your complaint under the CCPA complaint or not. So now let us understand who can actually file a CCPA complaint before the competent authority and what is that competent authority. Now as per the Consumer Protection Act, a complaint regarding the violations of consumer rights as a class, unfair trade practices or false and misleading advertisements can be forwarded by a consumer, any voluntary consumer association, central government or any state government also. The central authority itself, that is the CCPA on its own, that is the suo motu, can take the cognizance of such kind of complaints where the consumer rights as a class are affected, unfair trade practices are being done or false and misleading advertisements are being published to harass the consumers. So coming back to who can file the consumer complaint before the CCPA, again one or more consumers where there are numerous consumers with the same interest. Legal hire or representative in a case of a consumer death, the parent or a legal guardian in a case of consumer being minor. In all these scenarios, In all these scenarios, this has to be governed. Consumer rights as a class, unfair trade practices or false or misleading advertisement. Only then the CCPA complaint will be activated. तो अब ये कंप्लेंट फाइल कैसे करें? अगर आपने नॉर्मल कंज्यूमर मैटर्स हैंडल किए हैं तो नॉर्मली ई जागृति इज़ द पोर्टल वेयर यू सिंपली go and put up the information and file your consumer complaint. So till date the e-Jagriti portal is not meant for filing a CCPA complaint. The CCPA complaints can be forwarded in writing or through the electronic means to whom the district collector also. डिस्ट्रिक्ट कलेक्टर को अभी कंप्लेंट करने के जो प्रोविजंस हैं वी हैव नॉट सीन where the people have approached the district collector of a district to ensure that consumer के जो consumers as a class के rights जो इफ़ेक्ट हुए हैं and district collector must invoke the powers under Consumer Protection Act to receive a consumer complaint where the consumer rights of a class of consumers are getting affected. ठीक है. The commissioner of the regional office, that is the CCPA के जो regional offices establish होंगे, अभी हुए नहीं है as per my information. If you are aware, do provide this information in the comment box so that we also gets updated. And obviously the CCPA, the central authority, which right now is situated at the New Delhi under the Ministry of Consumer Affairs. So there you can file a complaint about where the consumer rights as a class, unfair trade practices, false and misleading advertisements are being there, so that you can file the complaint based on these three parameters. So once you have filed a complaint, होगा क्या? अगर हम बात करें what happens when a complaint is forwarded, जो process है इसका, सबसे पहले एक preliminary inquiry होगी. The CCPA can initiate a preliminary inquiry on its own, okay, or based on a complaint received or on directions from the central government. This is to determine if there is a prima facie case of violation of consumer rights as a class. That is very very important. उसके बाद investigation हो सकती है. If a prima facie case exists, the CCPA will order an investigation by the Director General or the District Collector. We have seen instances where the Director General of the CCPA wing has been given the task of doing the investigation, but as far as till date I have not received and I am not updated about the information where a district collector has been given the task of doing the investigation where the matters related to the consumer rights as a class has been affected. Powers during the investigation क्या है? First power is can summon the any person being investigated and demand the production of the documents of the records. Second power is search and seizure. The Director General or the District Collector can enter any premises, search for and seize documents, records or articles as evidence if they have reason to believe a violation has occurred. So the CCPA is not a toothless body. The CCPA is coming with the powers to investigate also. So what happens if during the investigation some incriminating evidence is found against the business entities? The CCPA has powers to impose penalty on the persons who are involved in violating of the consumer rights as a class, who are involved into the unfair trade practices, who are involved into the false or misleading advertisement business. But apart from giving penal directions against the accused persons, what relief as a consumers you will get? Let's understand the various powers of the CCPA to provide a relief. First relief is it can recall actually all the goods or the withdrawal of the services that are dangerous, hazardous or unsafe. It can order reimbursement of the prices of the goods or services जो कि कंज्यूमर्स ने एज ए क्लास रिसीव करी हो किसी वॉयलेटर से. It can direct discontinuation of the practices that are unfair and prejudicial to the consumer interest. It can discontinue or even direct the publishers to modify the false or misleading advertisement so that जिसके कारण जो consumer rights हैं जो इफ़ेक्ट हो रहे हैं उनको प्रोटेक्ट किया जा सके. Obviously, which we discussed, that it can impose penalties on the manufacturer as well as on the endorsers. That is very critical for us to understand in today's world where every social influencer, without checking the authenticity, without checking the credibility of actual product or the services, is ready to just give a false paid promotions for particular product or services. Because of that, the consumer rights gets affected. So if we see the powers of the CCPA, it can impose the penalties which can extend up to 10 lakh rupees for a first offense and 50 lakh rupees for any subsequent offenses. It is very much important for the social media influencers to understand this requirement, that the CCPA can prohibit an endorser from making any endorsement for up to 1 year initially, but if that particular endorser was found again into such kind of false promotions or misleading advertisements or paid promotions of the products which are impacting the consumer rights of as a class, then the CCPA can prohibit that endorser up to 3 years for subsequent contraventions also. So CCPA is not a toothless body. It has powers to investigate, it has powers to summon the person, it has powers to summon any document, it has power to perform the search and seize operations, and then it has powers to direct the infringers to stop such activities because of which there is a very negative impact on the rights of the consumers as a class. So let us now understand, even after directions, if someone fails to comply with the orders of CCPA, what will happen to them? So this is where the non-compliance with the CCPA directions. If a person against whom the CCPA has given the orders and that particular person or the business entity failed to comply with the orders for recalling goods, which is under the section 20 of the Consumer Protection Act, or discontinuing the misleading ads, which is under section 21, then such offense, such non-compliance to the CCPA orders can invite punishment up to 6 months and a fine of 20 lakh rupees or both. So that's the power of CCPA. And further, if you do not comply with the orders of the CCPA, what is the punishment for false and misleading advertisement? A manufacturer or a service provider causing a false or misleading advertisement prejudicial to the consumer interest can be punished with the imprisonment up to 2 years and a fine up to 10 lakh rupees. Every subsequent offense, the punishment can extend to imprisonment for up to 5 years and a fine up to 50 lakh rupees. So having said that, there exist various penal provisions for non-complying to the CCPA order. Obviously, it's a competitive market. We have seen where the competitors misuse or in fact abuse the process of law to ensure to gain the monopoly in the market by inflicting damages on the competitor. Here are the protection parameters given for any business entity. First is the opportunity to be heard. The principles of natural justice will always be there in any proceedings before the CCPA. The act ensures that the opposite party against whom the CCPA has started taking an action, the opposite party is given an opportunity to be heard before the CCPA passes an order to recall goods or issue penalties for misleading advertisements. So whenever an order is being passed against you, before passing an order, you will be invited to explain your stand for that particular advertisement which the CCPA believes it's a false or a misleading advertisement. Second, it's important for the endorsers, which can be the filmmakers, which can be the actors, which can be social media influencers. An endorser is not liable. I repeat, it's an endorser is not liable for a penalty if they can prove that they exercised due diligence to verify the truthfulness of the claims in the advertisement. So now, in order to seek any defense for promoting, for endorsing any particular product or services, the endorser has a duty to perform due diligence before recommending any product or services. Similarly, when the false or misleading advertisements are published on a particular portal or on a particular, let's say, newspaper, right? So the defense available for the publisher is a person who published an advertisement in the ordinary course of his business. Typically we have seen in the newspapers, news agencies, various ads are being given. So this is a very strong defense available for such publishers. But this also comes with a proviso kind of statement that unless they had a prior knowledge of a CCPA order to withdraw or modify the ad. So if there existed already a CCPA order for the person who has actually created the false and misleading advertisement, and the publisher is also aware of that particular order, still go ahead and publish further in its magazine or in its newspaper or on its website, then you will come under the scan of the CCPA. Then the Consumer Protection Act also provides various directions for the CCPA to decide how they are going to impose the penalty whenever the CCPA identifies that yes, there is a false and misleading advertisement, yes, there is a violation of rights of the consumers as a class, and yes, there are unfair trade practices are being followed by a particular business. So what are the various factors the CCPA must take into consideration? The factors are the populations and area impacted by the offense, the frequency and the duration of the offense. The third is the vulnerability of the class of the persons affected. More it is targeted for very much highly vulnerable people, then there are fair chances the penalty amount will shoot. The gross revenue from the sales generated by the offense. We have seen ample orders from the CCPA. You can go through our website. We have given the description of recent CCPA orders, various advisories issued by the CCPA, and link to these orders as well as advisories is available in the description section of this YouTube video. You will find out that the CCPA is very much active in issuing penalty orders. Most of the orders which we have gone through is that they are the suo motu orders, where the businesses which are involved into false or misleading advertisements related to the competitive exams for UPSC preparation, IIT preparation, the CCPA has came down heavily on such portals and imposed penalties up to 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees and all. So this is a brief about the CCPA complaint. So being aggrieved by the order of the CCPA, which was given under section 20 or section 21, the aggrieved person can always approach the Honorable NCDRC to challenge the order of the CCPA. We have created a detailed video on filing an appeal before the Honorable NCDRC against the orders of the CCPA. You can go through that particular link in our description box of this video and understand the procedure, timelines in detail about filing an appeal against the CCPA order. So if I conclude this video with the pointers, I have 4 pointers to share with you. That CCPA is definitely one of the powerful body under the Consumer Protection Act to protect the collective interest of the consumers. Prior to 2019 Act, there was no such body in India, but after 2019 Act, this body is working efficiently. More powers, more enforcement, people are required, more resources are required, more branches, regional benches of this CCPA are required to address the collective interest of consumers in India. Second, it provides a mechanism to address widespread issues like unfair trade practices and misleading advertisements that affect the consumers as a class. This is a very, very important window to understand that where the CCPA will act. It is not for individual complaints. It is only applicable, it is only activated when someone approaches with the mindset that rights of a consumers as a class has been affected. The third important point is the Act outlines a clear process for complaints, investigations and penalties, and at the same time it ensures principles of natural justice are available for the business entities, so that the arbitrariness in the decision making, in the adjudication process should not be there at least the CCPA level. And finally, the understanding about these rights, the class action grievances will definitely help businesses more accountable to the people, to the consumers at large. I believe this video now would have helped you to understand more about the Central Consumer Protection Authority, in fact, in short, CCPA, the various powers of the CCPA, various penalties or various directions or the orders which the CCPA can direct the businesses, and at the same time the businesses who are in the category B2C, they must be aware of the processes, they must be aware of the impact which the false or misleading advertisements can lead to against their business units. So keep CCPA always in mind, so that you become more accountable to the consumers as a class. And feel free to like this video and share this video with other stakeholders who wish to understand more about the consumer rights. We have created a lot of other videos on the Consumer Protection Act and various jurisdictions and the powers of the Honorable National Commission. You can get the links of these playlists in our description section. And if you have any questions, any comments for us, if you wish to understand more about a particular topic that's paining you with regard to the Consumer Protection Act, and do drop an email. You can put up your query in the comments also, or you can also reach us to our WhatsApp number. We will try to address your queries as soon as possible. And thank you very much for going through this video. Jai Hind.